Hello and welcome, this is Michael, and today we will be continuing our documentary on Triliza. And we will start with our very first page, the most important page, Firebase Authentication V2. So why V2? Because it's a whole new template, a whole new authentication template which I created and like kind of updated, patched in some things here and there, and now it's like fully automated. That is, you know that in Appgyver, in Appgyver you can't really connect with our Google account, because if you can connect your app to a Google account, it's so much easier so that your user does not have to every time go input your emails or password. But it's a turnaround. We won't be using Google account, but we can make it so that the user only inputs his email and password once, and then anytime you come back in, the app will just do the thing another way or other. It just retrieves the user data and matches up with their credential. It links up to the device there, or it is the user's account that is going to go to and directly logs in that object. So now let's see how it goes. So to get this Firebase authentication app, you have to go to authentication and you have to like toggle it. Normally there's a toggle here to like set authentication, or you select Firebase, and then you put in, you choose initial view. Initially is by default Firebase authentication, and then you're good to go. The app will not be the page will not be complete like this. You have like the Appgyver image here, then you'll be like, I don't know, login with this email and password I set there as my profile. Just login with CK. Yes, this profile. But this account is just kind of a button, create account that will send you to the sign up page where you should be checking out. We have the email with the page variable, with the page what's happening? With the page variable email and password with page variable password, of course. And password page variable password. And you also say input passwords to true, so that to protect passwords. But so we're not considering all of that. What we're considering two main concerns is this login button. Precisely the logic for the login button and also the logic for our page. Let's start the logic for our login button. Assuming you have gone through the create account and you have already created your account, what we're going to do in the login page is that when the user has set in his email and password, we want to make sure that he has actually inputted a valid email, or at least an email for that matter, and also has inputted a password that is at least 7 characters long, or at least a password, it's not empty. So to do that, we'll put in two if conditions for email and password. And this first condition is to check whether there's an email, and if the email itself is not empty. So if the email field in the email field, if the email field is empty, then it's going to say false, and it's going to flow to this load. Give a toast to the user, say please type your password, and if it's true, then you come to the next one condition, which should be like, if it is empty, if the password is not empty, okay, so I'm negating whether the password is empty or not. And the password is not empty. Okay, the password is not empty. Like if it was empty, then we'll have to like send it to us. If it is not empty, what is? So what are we doing here? I'm trying to understand myself. Oh, okay, we negated it. If it is not empty, then we can go here. If it's not, it's empty here. So this is a negation sign, the exclamation sign. Either you put the exclamation sign or you put not. Both are going to negate. The only difference is that exclamation sign, no need to like cover them in brackets, just like in the notes. Alright, so assuming that your email and password meant that the user was kind enough to write all that you have to remind the user to actually type in the fields, type in the important fields in order to log them in. So we'll go to the next node, will be like show speeder, because a lot of things will be going on, so we don't want to be like the app is not responsive. We want to make it so that the user feels like the app is responding, is responsive, because if you don't put in the spinner, then it's just going to do all these other tasks. Why just stay blank? Why just not showing anything? So the user will like press the login button and nothing happens, and it's forced to press again, nothing happens. Actually, it is happening in the background, but that you can see. So that's why show spinner. So we're going to show a spinner with the text there, spinner text in logging in. And while that is happening, it's going to take a while. It's going to keep spinning until you put the high spinner somewhere. And we're going to put the high spinner when we're ready. So we go down to HTTP request. This is one of the most important notes in this login. So for the HTTP request, we're going to be using this URL. This URL is gets it from Firebase. This goes from Firebase documentation, Google APIs to get the API key. So you need to see the API key. The API key to the Firebase project. You know, assuming you have connected your authentication here, I'll go to assume that you have actually connected your Firebase. Because if you haven't, then it won't work. So you actually have to connect your Firebase to the project using the connectors. That is in data. Connectors come and link this up. Then you come and fill in these blanks for Android and web, because you need this API key. So once I fill all of this up, which means it has been connected, I have saved this API key. What I usually do is I copy this and I create an app variable only for the API key. So this API key will just come and paste it as initially, and it doesn't get lost like that. So we get back here, and inside the HTTP request as our login, this by default, you can copy this. All of this is by default. It will work for you as it will for me. And plus, and now your own API key. You can also put your API key just over here, or you can put it like I did. Next up, this is a post, because we're going to be requesting. We're not going to be requesting. We're getting right. We're going to be requesting. No, we're going to be posting the email. Yeah, we're going to be putting out the email and password to our database, to our Firebase, and it's going to like search through the records and see the user who got the same email and password. So that's what it posts. That's why we're using the post here. Headers, nothing headers. Request body. The request body now. This is what we're posting. We're going to be posting the email, the password, and return secure token. So if the email and password okay, then return true. Between the return token will be returned to us. That's the token. The token is really important. We're going to be using it quite quickly. So these two over here are just to toast out an error response. That is, if an error occurs, then it should hide the spinner and then toast this. Whatever error happens, it will just toast the error from this node. By assuming all goes well, then we'll go over here to get record collection. Now, why are we not going to get the user's record collection? Because if you get a specific user, well, we don't have his ID. We don't know the ID of the record user. There's no magic for us to like directly identify a user. The app cannot directly identify users based on that, if you know the email, password, no. Because each email and password is stored in a particular ID, and we don't really know any way of like saving them, or like they could be turn around using Firebase and a certain amount of if condition. Now the safest way would be to use these three nodes that I created. These three nodes here. Let me make this closer enough. So our first node in the game is to get record. So we're going to get in the record collection. We're going to get a record collection of all users. This is important because now each user which is saved in our Firebase is having a particular ID, and that ID is going to be sent back to us. That particular ID for the particular user which having its email password is going to be sent back to us through login. Remember the return secure token? Yeah, that token is going to be having the ID, and the ID is the exact same ID as the one for our user. So if we get the record collection contains like the username, the password, and of course the ID of the user. So what we're going to do is that in this user ID, this is the ID. This is an app variable. This is an object app variable, and I'm going precisely on the ID part of it. You can see over here, subject app variable. So this is subfield of the object user. So I want to save the token that I was talking about, the token inside the user.id, because that's what we're going to be using here. You could also directly put in whatever code is over here that we'll check out, but it's much easier. It's much easier to like store it in an Appgyver, but that way we can use it also in the app or stay in this continuum. So now, how do we get this particular? Because we have a collection of user data. Therefore, we have a collection of names, collection of password. No, we just store password. We have a collection of names, collection of emails, collection of IDs. So how do we go about it? So to get about it, this is a turnaround code that we got that I got, and you could find another way to do this, but trust me on that. I have run through a lot of different matchups without even creating an algorithm to find out the best way. So this is the one that works, and if you want it, it's yours. If you don't, it's okay. So how did this work? So we're going to be using select, map, and join. The select here is going to be remember, this is a list. This output get record collection because it's a list of names, emails, and IDs. So what I want to do is to select a particular record, just one of those users, and that one of the users is particularly the one whose ID is equals to the token. As you can see over here, the output login, the output that is the login. This login is like HTTP request. What returns from it, that is a REST body local ID. REST body local ID, that's the token I'm talking about. The REST body local ID, and that ID is like the same as the ID of whichever user is having that same email and password. So you are going to run now the select. This select is going to run and it's going to take all the user records, and now it's going to check whichever user ID is exactly equals to our local ID. That's the token, or the REST body, the token from the HTTP request. So whichever one is there, once it finds that one is that found it, it's going to select it. Select is going to like select any field, any record is having this form, this condition. So if there are two users who are having the same ID, then those two users will be taken. But luckily, we understand that when we talk about ID, when the user has an ID, it's a specific identifier, which means only one user will have that one ID, which means we're safe to use select because it's going to select only one ID, because only one ID is going to be equal to this REST body that we're receiving from the HTTP request. Okay, so once we have that record ID, remember we have picked out of the users. Remember, out of the users record collection, I picked out only one user, which we know that this is definitely the user inputted his email and password, whether it's having his name, email, and ID. What do we want from here? What we want now is we're going to map out we're going to transform each item in a list into another. So what I want to do is, because remember what we're moving from here is what we're moving from the user, like I was saying, is a record. It's actually an object, and it's a kind of list form. Like if you see an example here, you check an example here, because this record, right, this record is a list of objects. We're going to move one of those objects, and it's going to stay in a particular list. So map now is going to remove that object brackets. I just want a particular value. I just want a particular value from all of those objects. For which particular value do I want? I want the ID. So out of the name, email, and ID, I just want the ID and the value, precisely just the value of the ID. So to just get the value of the ID, I use the map. So the map is going to move, like you see, item ID. So let's say for example we have different things, and so if in animals we have item.name, it's going to only write in name, the value of the names. Because you see we have dog tape, we have named rat, we have named cat. So if you put map animals item.name, it's going to put just dog, cat, rat, and it's going to set them all in a list. So it's going to be a list of text rather than a list of object. So now that we have extracted the record, now we extracted a particular user from the list of users, we have extracted the particular item, the particular ID in a list form, that is a text in the list. What we're going to do now is we're going to join the list of text that in that, and we know that it's just one text that is inside that list. So it's just one user, and so on and so forth. So since just one user inside this list of text, we're going to use the join. So the join joins a list of text into just one text at all. And since we just have one text, all we're going to do is we're going to put apostrophes, double apostrophes, because joins takes it takes two values. It takes first of all the list, the list of text which one to join, and it's going to take now what we want to separate each text with. So you could put a comma, or you could just put just two apostrophes, and I'm just going to change them. Like see for example this example here, right? So if I move this and this, you see that all join. And that's it, and that's how we're going to get the ID, specific ID of our user. That was a mouthful. Okay, so once we got the user ID, once we get the user ID, I feel like I kind of to explain this join. Like I was saying, this join now is going to, like, if I remove this, it's just going to join all of them, ABC, right? It's going to join A, B, C, and it's the same thing we're doing here. Because after we've gotten the user, we've got the ID of the user, it's in the list. But we're not going to be join text, you know, to make it just a text, not a list of text. So join, I just put the apostrophe so that you know add any extra thing, just text. So once that's done, we are now going to get a particular record of the user. We're going to get a particular record of the user. Now you might ask me that, but over here you just selected a particular user. Well, yeah, I selected a particular user, but there could be much more data. There could be much more data. And yes, now that I think about it, you could like basically just use this select, and map it. And that's the thing, to map it directly to this app variable here. I don't know, I feel like that's even an easier way than getting like this get record and getting, yeah, you know what, we do every day. Because from this app variable, the only issue with this way is that, first of all, we need the ID. This was just to get the ID. If we wanted to get all of it, then we have to like come here, because app user is the object that will be getting the user data, right? You need to get it. So let me go to custom object. So as you can see, although we are getting all of it at once from this formula, if we just take the select part of it, right? If you just take the select part of it, it's going to take the name, email, maybe you have taken the person's country, the number, and so on and so forth. But now to join them here, to connect them each over here, you actually have to map out each value. You are going to map each, you're going to map connects, you're going to map country, you're going to map date of birth, you're going to map email. So it's going to be a formula for each of them, because you can't just map them. You can't just, I think you can map them, but nah, you need a formula for this, because if you want to directly go by this formula and link it up to here, then you have to do a formula for each of them. So that's why I took this approach. You can say that approach, that'll be smart. Just tedious work. I don't that tedious work. So coming back over here, we just got the user ID, particular user ID. Next we get a single record for the user. After we get users for the users, we get the particular, put the user.id which are finally identified. Next up, now we're going to link the different values, the different keys of this user to our variable, because we want to be constantly taking, since we're in the app, we want to be running the app smoothly. To run the app smoothly, we just want to remove the user data once from the Firebase, and then using it constantly using app variables. So that's why we're going to be using app variable user, which is an object which contains all of this, and it's easier to map here. As you can see, you don't need a formula, you just like get over here, you get output, select by the output value of another node, and then you select get record H. Alternatively, you can come over here, get to mapping, source data, come over here, get record, select this record, save, and then connect this. I just didn't take this approach because there are some fields that I needed to be blank. So if I take this approach, if you take this approach, you need all of your fields to be filled. If not, it won't. All your fields to be filled. You need all your fields to be filled. If not, it won't work that smoothly. So that's why I took this slightly longer approach, but definitely worth it. So once you have linked up in the way you want it, you have linked up your different user data to the available to the object user. You cannot hide this user. You can finally, and I mean, well, like halfway through, no, we're almost done. You can now go and hide the spinner, dismiss initial view, which means what, successfully login. And I tell the user that we found your credentials, we found your account, we found your data, and so you can run smoothly your app because we have collected your data and put it inside the app, which means you can do whatever you want your app without needing to like get back your user data every time from Firebase. So far, in the app, so the logout for now. So in order to tell them that all of that happened in 2 words, just put it to successful login. And make sure it's after the hide spinner. Either you put it like I put over here, that is in parallel, or after the hide spinner you put the toast. And that's it for the login button. That took a while. Next up, which is another very important part of it, is the page login, the page logic. So for the page logic, it will be almost same kind of. The page logic will be after you've successfully logged in. Once the user has logged in once, I forgot one little thing in the logic, right? There should be a set item to storage. So what about set item to storage is a refresh token. So this refresh token is what is going to make us have this kind of Google-like connection where you don't need the user to like connect again and again and again and again. That is like writing their email and password again and again. So we're going to save to storage, to the user storage. We're not going to save in cache. We're going to save in a permanent location that the user won't be able to access it easily. I want to put in a virus, so please use that here with us. I want to put in a virus in your code. You can only store text here, okay? So that's the good side of it. You can only store text information inside here. And if I check here, any value, okay. So you can only put text here or any value, which is kind of questioning when I think about it. So like, you really need to trust your publishers before. So anyways, the item key is simply the name we should be using to retrieve this data. So like if I set here like refresh token as item key, when we want to get item from storage, we have to put in the same refresh token in order to refresh the data. And the data to store here is this rest token, the refresh token, rest body refresh token. And we're going to use the refresh token for the next time the user logs in. The next time the user logs in, the refresh token is stored in the storage. So now we're going to get this refresh token in order to like directly get all that information about the ID. So you see the other map and select and join that we did that was a bit too long, If the app is just going to do allowance and you don't need the user to input the email and password and stuff. And it's so much better than actually storing the user's email and password. You don't want to do that. You don't want to store the user's password. The user's password is for him and him alone. So let's go to it. So when a page mounts is an image component, it's mostly for this create account over here. Next up, why is the hide spinner? The hide spinner here should be placed before show spinner, because when the app mounts, it's going to initialize. It's going to set the initial view. The initial view is Firebase. Now I said the initial view is just going to keep spinning. I don't know where it's a better or something, but you have to set it this hide spinner. This hide spinner when you page mount. I'm going to check this login. So this if condition is to check if login an app variable, and by default is set to false. And over here it's now set to true. I don't think it really matters whether it's here or not. By default it's always set to false, so don't worry too much about this logic. It's not really that interesting. So next up we have the show spinner again, and someone wants to greet. Oh, and it's disturbing. Yep. Say hi. Hi. So go over there. her name is Zoe or John or Alinifa. You do you. Who goes there? Alright. Oops. So next up after the show spinner, we're going to get refresh token. So we're using the get item from storage. So the get item from storage, as you can see over here, calm down. Okay, it's always gone now. So refresh token, we're going to get item from storage, and like I told you, it's going to take item key. I just said it exactly as you wrote it. Refresh token item key, so that now what it outputs, the output value will be the item, and if item was found, true or false. That's interesting, an important note. So from there now we're going to do another HTTP request, and now we're going to be using our refresh token. So this HTTP request is going to be using the API key again, and this time it's going to make use of that refresh token to directly log in the user. And this is the API request. Is it the URL? Yeah, this is the URL that you're going to use. So you can copy this. It's definitely worth having it always, so you can go and check in the Firebase documentation. Again, it's going to be a post because we're going to be requesting. We're going to be posting out the refresh token in order to collect something activated. Headers as usual empty. Oh, and it's important, the request body type. I think for the login, let's check it out. For the login, the request type was JSON. Yeah, but over here, don't confuse. Make sure you remember and check it out. If you have no working or it just doesn't log in, then check it out. The login, for the login HTTP request, it's a JSON request body type. But for the main page, the request body is the second value, because what to either is JSON or is form URL encoded. So for this one, it's going to be URL encoded, and now you're going to copy this because you're going to grant type refresh token. Refresh token will be output get. So grant type, what are we granting? We want to grant, we're going to be, like I told you, this is a post, right? So we're going to be sending out the refresh token. And so what is the grant type? What are we sending out? The refresh token. And what is the value of that refresh token? Is going to be dictated for the get item from storage item, which is what our refresh token. Alright. So once that is done, and if there's an error, then we're going to hide the spinner and kind of, is this useful? I don't see where this is useful. No, okay. This is too, this was a little too packed up. So this is when it's okay. When it's not okay, it's going to hide spinner, and you should put a toast here on an alert that there's an error that occurred over here. But assuming all of this works, then we're going to set item to storage. We're going to set item to storage again, which is odd. I don't think you really need to set item to storage again every time you do this. Yeah, this can be avoided. This is not an issue. Next up now is user ID. So this is a different user ID because the first user ID we used was an object which was having the user data including the ID. But here this is specifically only a user ID, because when you get refresh token, right, what this HTTP request is going to do is going to get in any value. It's going to be text, but it's kind of like going to, since it's not really clear what it's going to get, it just assumes that it will be any value. The output from here is going to be any value because it doesn't really know what it's going to be getting out of this. Appgyver doesn't know, okay? The API is going to be setting text, but Appgyver doesn't know whatever text is going to be sent, whether it's a number or it's a boolean, so it just sets to any value. So what you have to do is to create another app variable for user ID, and the type will be any value. And this is the any value that is going to take the response body priest user underscore ID. So you can see the output get token is going to get the ID of the user, but the set ID of the user, which we will not really need to be doing all that mumbo jumbo we did last time. Yeah. The difference between this particular ID and the one we did before is that the one we did before we needed to actually send in the email and password. Remember, we don't use it to be putting the email and password every time. So what we do is we're going to take the refresh token, because the refresh token is like equivalent to the email and password of the user, and so that refresh token will now be used to like compare with email and password, and like whichever one is having that refresh token it's just going to like connect and slam bam. Okay, we found a user ID, send it back to us. So it sends it back into here, and like I tell you, is an anybody can send a text, but Appgyver doesn't know whether it's a number, boolean, or else it sends in an any value. It responds for the grade user underscore ID. Okay, so once we get that, now we're going to send this user ID into our user.id. User.user.id. So this is different from what we used before, right? If you want to check it, just to make sure, yeah, this was user.user.id. You could still use this. No problems at all. I just made a particular one. User.user.id. Oh, okay. User.user.id. So I want to believe that this user.user.id is the Firebase ID. No, I think you can use either. Users. Let's check it out. Okay. If you go to ID, oh no idea. Oh wait. Yeah, there's an ID, but there's no user.user ID here. Okay, I've seen user.user ID. Let's see what it gives here. User.user ID. Oh, okay. So I made a little mistake here. Although it doesn't really matter because it gets overridden. But you want to still use the same user ID. You remember how we took specifically user.id, right? And the difference between the two ID, because if you check let's go check this object. If you check this user object, user ID is for the any value, remember? Now if you go here, you will see the ID and again user ID. So the user ID over here, the user ID is for Firebase cloud storage. Because the cloud storage stores different values, and now what I did is that for that particular, because the different values are stored in their own ID, it's not really like the ID that was stored when creating the account. The account is going to have a different ID from the ID that will be created in Firebase storage in the database. So in order to like use the two, because you can't use the two, but the two are also useful. So during login, we're going to be using during login we're going to use this ID, user.id, therefore, and now in the app we're going to be taking reference to user.user.id. Now I'm saying it's going to be overridden because when I connect this any value over here into a particular text by changing this any value into string, you're going to see this message because JSON is not assigned with text, but this is the best way to change the JSON into text. You first of all take the JSON file, you save it into an any value, and then you save it again into another variable which is going to send transform it onto text. That's easy. If you connect it directly, it won't work. Trust me, I've been there. It doesn't work. It hurts. So yeah, you're going to be using, rather than using user ID, user.user ID, you want to connect it to user.id and now flow from there rather than that. Now it's going to override because once it goes through here, because it's just to transform to like change this any value type into a text, a pure text, which is what it is. The Appgyver doesn't know. We're now going to get user records like before, and now over here we're going to get, like I told you, remember I told you that you can, rather than doing all those formula, or rather than doing what we did before, we could like put all the formulas. So this is what I did. I did formulas for each and every one of them, and it is kind of painful. So don't do that. Just link up, just take directly the get user and use the user ID which we got over there rather than doing this. Suit yourself. If you want to do it. It's at your own discretion. So where were we? Yeah. So this doesn't make any difference whether I use user.user ID or user.id, because over here in the user object we're going to be overriding the ID and the user ID. So whatever is here, once we jump and come over here, it's going to go over everything. I was going to do it. Except if you use the other way, that is the way we use the login, then you should definitely set this to user.id and not user ID. And then you're done. All you have to do is to put a height spinner, you put those, then the user that is successfully login, set login to true, which obviously has no use here, and then dismiss you initially. And then we done. So what are your questions here? If you've got any question, make sure you comment. And yeah, I think that's it. I know there's a lot. I'm really happy I actually like clarify myself, and I think I've touched every aspect of any questionable question you could question about this page, about this Firebase authentication page. So now I'm going to the authentication page, and this was a hell of amount of time taken. We're going to go to the sign up page on our next video. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you then. Oh, as always, peace.